Welcome to the Worship Keys YouTube channel. My name is Carson. So glad you're here. We talk all things music theory, gear, industry, and ministry for your worship keys playing. If this episode is beneficial for you or you have any questions as you continue to watch, feel free to comment below, and I'd love to hear any feedback that you have along the way. So let's get into today's episode. Today, I have the enormous pleasure of talking with Marcus Wiles. We've been hanging out, but man, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's a huge honor to be here.
No, the honor is all ours to be able to just get some insight of your world, but share with us a little bit about what you do here in Nashville. Now, originally from Arkansas, and which is awesome. Easier to when you're filling out forms, finding Arkansas than finding Tennessee.
Well,
logistics,
except they are. Sometimes for some people it's Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
And some people will say AK for Arkansas, even though that's Alaska.
Wow.
But for anyone listening, AR is Arkansas.
Okay.
AZ is Arizona, and AK is Alaska.
And AI is artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that one too. I'm glad we've established this. Yeah.
For me, being from Alabama is always the very first one, so it's just easy. Marcus is an incredible keys player, but played for a lot of amazing artists that you guys may know. Jordan Feliz, Kelsea Ballerini, Colton Dixon. Let's see, who else?
Tasha Layton. She's awesome. Gokey.
Oh, Danny Gokey. I love his voice, man.
Yeah, he's
top notch.
insane. Yeah.
Especially when he does stuff with Natalie Grant.
Yep.
That's like one of my favorite duos.
That Christmas tour they do.
Oh, every year?
I try to catch it at least once a year.
It's
Yeah.
good, man.
Yeah, it's insane. And I have the pleasure of getting to work with a lot of local artists as well, up and coming people that's honestly where I have some of the most fun.
We'll shout them out too, man. We want to know them as well.
I'll shout out my friend Olivia Grasso.
Okay.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's got a record out. It's dope.
Now, you produce, you arrange, you write, you do session work. You're not just on the road. So tell us more about what you do from on week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis. What's it look like for you as a professional musician, man?
Variety is the spice of life, right? Yeah. I would say throughout the year, I'll probably do 3 to 4 tours a year, mostly with Jordan Feliz. I have the honor of being his music director.
That's great.
Been doing that for a few years now. And then
he's very entertaining, and I love his hair, by the way.
Yeah, great hair, great hats. Great style all over. The amount of style tips I've gotten from him over the years.
Now, is this like coming from, does someone dress him, or is that totally him?
That's all him.
Is that all him?
That's all him. Yeah. No, like some artists use stylists and stuff, and that's great. But he's always on Grailed and other stuff and looking for deals. And
love it.
Sometimes we'll be hanging out and he's like, dude, look at this. You should get this. Or sometimes he'll just get it. Right now, we're gearing up to go on a spring tour with Jordan.
Awesome.
Riley Clemens is opening up for us.
Oh, yeah. Riley's great too.
Yeah, and I'll be playing with her, and I'm really excited about that. I'm getting ready with building new arrangements, getting playback stuff put together, things like that. So that's what I've been doing the last couple weeks. So there's arranging, tour prep, stuff like that. A lot of church work. Might be playing music directing at a church or just playing at a church somewhere, doing some session work. I try to write as much as I can, write and produce. That's just more of a long-term goal for me. During the warmer months, I'm out playing golf or hanging out with my wife.
Awesome.
I hang out with my wife year-round, not just during the warmer months, but yeah.
When I have time, I hang out with my wife.
Honestly, that's my favorite thing to do.
That's awesome.
And she'll play golf with me too, so that's a win-win.
That's good.
But so that's kind of it.
Take us back from when you were younger, when you grew up in church. What kind of church background did you come from? How did you learn the piano, and where did you learn to love Jesus first and foremost, and then music and piano?
Yeah, I am very fortunate to have grown up in church. I grew up in the Church of God, which is like a charismatic Pentecostal kind of background. So I grew up churchy. Yeah. I'm a pastor's kid too, so there was just no getting away from it. But yeah, it's so hard to nail down when music started for me, because there are plenty of pictures of me like as an actual baby physically hitting a guitar, because that's what you do when you're a baby. You hit hitting a guitar or hitting a piano or whatever. I can go back to, I think I was in 3rd grade, and my dad, who I said was a pastor, he would do these radio spots on local radio where he would invite people to church.
Yeah.
My dad has a great radio voice.
Oh.
So the way I remember it is he had all these like jazz CDs, and when he would pick me up from school, he would be like playing through, trying to find 10 or 20 second like sections of it to talk over, to invite people to church. I remember like helping him pick stuff out. Yeah. And there was one record specifically It was Oscar Peterson Trio.
Oh, yeah.
Who Oscar's the GOAT, in my opinion.
The GOAT, yeah.
Yeah, Oscar Peterson Trio, live, CBC Studios, I think it's 1960. And I remember listening to that record and just thinking, I don't know what this is, but I want to do this. And I don't even think at that point I was thinking I'm going to play piano. I just think whatever this is, I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So I got the bug for music and specifically jazz. And so that next year, I had an opportunity to join like the band program at my school.
Yeah.
And so I picked saxophone because if you're interested in jazz. But I grew up just in large part thanks to my dad, like very musical, because he not only was pastoring our church, but he was also like the music pastor, played piano at the church. He's also a bluegrass musician. He played banjo and guitar, and I love bluegrass. I grew up, we just go to bluegrass festivals and stuff like that. And so of course I picked up the instrument that has such a rich history in bluegrass, which is the piano of all things. There's almost no piano.
Yeah, there's no. It's just strange. It's just all.
But, yeah, I love it. And so I
Did you start playing any ragtime though?
Yeah, a little bit. Trying to what extent a kid can do it with tiny hands. You need big hands. To play
yeah. You got to stretch.
Yeah, big time. And Oscar Peterson obviously does that stride piano.
Yes.
That was just very alluring to me. But growing up all the way through middle school, high school, it was a lot of jazz and gospel music. And then I ended up going to music school out in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I got a piano degree or music business degree where I also studied piano. And hung out there for a few years. I do playing in church, playing a lot of local gigs, local artists, weddings, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then eventually I just felt it was time to come to Nashville, and I've been here ever since.
And you went to school at Lee University, right?
I went to Lee University.
I'll be able to hear that. I love it.
Go Flames. I was contracting at a church over there for a while, and it was awesome. Some amazing people there. But I really found myself somewhat burnt out. And I've been playing in church my whole life. And so whenever you've been doing something for that long, regardless of how you feel about it inside, like you know what to do, what notes to play, what chords to play.
Right.
You know all the tricks, so to speak. And I would be doing my thing, and I would be seeing these people out in the congregation from the stage every Sunday, getting their blessing, receiving things that they needed to receive from the Holy Spirit. And I just felt dead inside from a long time. And I remember sitting in the green room between services at this church. This was early 2019. And
right before COVID hit.
Yeah, just in time. And just feeling the Holy Spirit speak to me in a way that I hadn't felt in years at that point. And where he just said, I felt like he said, you're failing because you're trying to make this your gig, and this is never meant to be that. And I think that is a slippery slope in that culture, especially with contracting at churches, right. Which I think people should be paid. Not everyone needs to get paid. That's a whole other topic. I'm not here to talk about that, but it was part of my income. And I just found that me, and I think a lot of other people too, can get some stuff mixed up on that slippery slope. I had some stuff mixed up. And so that's why I got all burnt out. And so I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying, you need to go get a gig, or you need to go do something else. And I just felt, okay, I don't know what that means, but we'd been looking at moving. And so I was like, okay, we're going to go to Nashville and we're going to do it. Yeah. But what was really amazing is within a month, I think it was maybe around 2 weeks of me moving to Nashville, I had been approached about playing for Jordan. And the timing of it, it's just one of those things that when I talk about it, like I'm in no way bragging, because it was so miraculous. I just can't take any credit for it. Like the way everything orchestrated itself and shifted into place, the timing of that, it really was providential and nothing short of miraculous. And so I've been doing that since then. Went on tour with him just as a keys player and doing playback in 2020, beginning of 2020, just in time for COVID. And then literally in my hometown of Little Rock, grew up just outside of Little Rock, the whole state shut down, and that was the beginning of the pandemic for me. And we didn't get to finish that tour until 18 months later.
Man, crazy. And
it's just kind of this whole crazy journey, but God's been so faithful. And I guess about 3 years ago, 2022, wow, that's 3 years ago, it's crazy. 3 years ago, I started MDing for Jordan, been doing that since then, and doing a lot of other things besides. And it's just been great. God has been so faithful.
Awesome.
I hope that's not too long.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I think we need to hear all those things. You mentioned that you play now back at church with the most joy you've ever played.
Yeah.
Talk about that and talk about why that is, that you have so much joy.
Yeah.
And then all the differences of the pro world versus the church world.
We would be here for a long time,
Yeah.
but I'll try to distill it a little bit. Yeah, so like I said, I felt that urging from the Holy Spirit to shift some things. And so I came here and I did find a gig, and it's a gig. I'm doing Christian music. There's still a ministry aspect to it. I came here and started touring and then doing other stuff as well. And for a long time, I didn't play at church. I would go to church, but I didn't play at church for maybe almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just like I'll say I was somewhat jaded, but it was just a very healing time for me just to step away. And then I had an opportunity. A friend of mine at the time was a music pastor at a church here in Nashville, and he needed a sub. He needed someone to come in and play for him one Sunday. And I wasn't doing anything. I was home. This was COVID times, so there wasn't a lot of road work, as some of you may remember. So I went there and played, and it was just like, it was such a wonderful experience just to not just worship corporately, because I've been going to church, but like to actually do the thing that I feel like I was built to do for that purpose, and only for that purpose.
Yeah.
And so it really started a season of healing for me. And now I am back to contracting at churches sometimes, and I get to step in oftentimes to an MD role and use not just my experience as a touring musician, as a session player, as a producer, but also as a sort of recovered church. I don't know what the term would be. I've been through it though. I feel like I've walked through some of those pitfalls. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I get to bring that into it as well in terms of music directing, with running rehearsals and stuff like that. I think it really comes down to something I hear talked about a lot in the church and in the professional world as well, but this is the Worship Keys podcast.
Yeah, man.
I hear a lot of talk about excellence, and that's amazing, and I think it's important to define that. I think it's relative.
Yeah, it is subjective.
Everyone has their own definition of it, and you have to find the goalpost to know if you're being successful or not.
Absolutely.
And so for me, if I'm in a professional environment, the goal to be excellent, it's understanding a clear vision from the artist, what they want, and finding the right combination of people and navigating all of the business decisions and the logistical decisions and everything, but putting all the pieces in play to execute that vision for their brand or their message or whatever it is. And so if you're in rehearsal and something's not working out, there's an added pressure there, because you're not just representing yourself, you're representing someone who's paying you. And there's no other way to say it. There's a lot of curb appeal about, especially being on a touring gig. It's amazing, but just like anything, like nothing is as amazing as it seems, nothing's as bad as it seems, right? But undoubtedly it has a lot of curb appeal. And so it's something that there's oftentimes a lot of people that would want to jump in and try to do. So it's like knowing that if you're not the guy, they'll find the guy. So there's that pressure.
Yeah.
And I think that it requires a certain amount of maturity to handle those things in a positive way, but also to understand as a leader, as a music director in that environment, that you have to understand that where everyone's feeling and what their hopes and dreams are. So it really is just knowing your team and everything. And so in that way, when you come into church, it's similar in some ways, but the intensity is different, because there's not this, at least there shouldn't be, I feel like in church, there shouldn't be this air of, if you can't do it, I'll find someone else who can. It needs to be, hopefully, your worship team is full of people that are faithful to the church, and they want to serve the church, and the vision is a powerful corporate worship experience on Sunday or whatever service you're getting ready for. Mm-hmm. And so obviously everyone works together to make it as good as it can be, but you're also often not working in an environment where everyone is a professional musician. You've got a multitude, especially here in Nashville, like you've got a multitude of experience levels. Oh, the bass player might used to be on the road with so-and-so, and the drummer is, here between runs. He's currently on the road, and one of the worship leaders is a independent artist, but everyone else just has a 9-to-5 job, and they're here to serve their church.
Yeah.
It's a very unique experience, if you think about it, to try and like figure out where everyone's at and get everyone to work together. And so that's really what it is. When I walk into a church environment, I try to just gauge the potential and just extract as much excellence as is possible without having to exchange the culture of the team or anyone's attitude or whatever.
Yeah.
And because at the end of the day, it's just about what's the priority. I would even say it's the same thing in touring. If the transaction to get the job done is someone's mental health or their emotional well-being, then it's not a good fit. But the result in a professional environment is you have to find someone else.
Yeah.
In church, I don't think you kick someone to the curb just because it's not working out.
Yeah.
You have to understand that the vision changes. We all have to work together. And like, absolutely. I think that the thing that's most pleasing to the Lord is a corporate worship experience. And so if you have someone in the church body that's serving and they can do the job, then let's work together and figure out what this needs to be. Maybe something needs to be simplified or whatever. It took me some time to learn because like it's a different approach. And I get up on stage in front of a red keyboard and I've got a talkback mic. Sometimes I'm like, it's easy to forget where you're at. But I think I try my best to do it the same in both environments, just to lead with love and to know the people that are part of the team and to just respect them above everything else and to respect their journey too.
I love that.
Not just spiritually, but musically too. It's like, I have this background in jazz and gospel, but like maybe the bass player, he grew up or she grew up doing country music or whatever. And so my default gut instinct musical decision might not be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it wrong. It just means that we have to work together. So
I love that. It's
just all about communication at the end of the day.
I love that.
And just defining success.
That's good,
I think that's really important.
I love your heart behind that, man. Really do. I want to dive into your keys setup, man.
Yeah.
I know you probably love to talk about this. I don't know
let's
if you
go.
ever have the opportunity to.
I honestly have never had the opportunity to.
Well, dude, so tell us all about this key setup.
We're about to nerd out.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Well, you're in the right audience to do. A lot of keys players that are watching this. Of course, no, we don't have your keyboard. If you're listening on the podcast, we don't have the keyboard in front of us. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously you know that. We only have a piano behind us, which I do want to hear you play. I do want to hear at the end of the episode. I think maybe we'll do the outro where you can noodle around on some piano because you're an amazing pianist, and it would be doing a disservice if we didn't hear you at least play one of your favorite songs on the piano.
I'm really good at playing Jordan Feliz songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet, man. I bet. Tell us about your rig, because as soon as I saw the visual of it, which I do want to put on the screen here on YouTube, of just from your Instagram of what it looks like, but describe to everyone what all keyboards you use, what your favorite sounds are, how many things are you sending out to the sound man, all this stuff, man. Just go for it, man.
The first thing I should probably say is I get bored easy.
Okay.
So if you ask me again in 6 months, it'll probably be different.
What now? Is that a pun intended? You get bored keyboard?
That was no pun intended. I have to buy one new keyboard every 6 months. No, I don't think.
Kind of like a guitarist and their pedal.
I don't think my wife would appreciate that very much. Yeah, I think I'm done with keyboard purchases for a while. I guess I'll start with the boards themselves. I've been on the Nord bandwagon for a long time now. I bought a Stage 2 back in 2014, maybe.
Oh wow, you really have been.
Yeah,
for a while,
I said I started on saxophone. I sold one of my saxophones. I sold one of my guitars. And just about everything else to my name back in the day to buy that.
Basically sold your soul to get your Nord.
I was a broke college student, and I still bought it on credit.
Oh, man.
Sweetwater credit card. Let's go.
Let's go.
My current setup is I have a Nord Stage 4 88 as my main board. I've got this kind of like triangle setup. It's pretty much all the main keyboard sounds, Rhodes, piano, whatever, and all my pads as well.
Okay.
And then up here on the left, which sometimes I flip-flop them, but usually up here on the left is any number of analog synths that I'm feeling.
Love it.
I have a couple pieces that I like to swap out most often, which my favorite synth of all time that I own is the Prophet 6.
Oh, yeah, we love that.
I love that, but I also love it a lot, so I don't really want it to get road worn.
Right.
Started seeing some bent knobs all of a sudden. I was like, I'm going to keep this thing at home.
Yeah.
So I also have a Korg Prologue.
Okay, awesome.
Which I haven't seen a lot of those out in the wild, but I think they're dope. It's a fairly affordable analog synth. It's compact. It's The 8-voice one is 49 keys. And it's one of those that the mod wheel is like above the keys, not to the side. So it's just really compact. It looks like it's almost a square, but it's not. But it's just pretty compact. It's got like a ton of oscillators, and it's just got a big sound. Yeah. And I love that. And so I've got that off to one side, and that is mostly just the big analog stuff, the stuff that has to be analog. Like you're cutting leads, or I'm not really doing any bass stuff on the gig for Jordan, but sometimes if I'm playing for an artist that maybe it's like just me and a drummer, that'll come in handy for bass. Or if it's a pad that is like more kind of up front, not really like a background pad. In worship, we always talk about layering pads and piano. If it's not that kind of pad, then I might play it over there. Okay. And then on the right side, I have another Nord. It's a Stage 3 compact.
Sweet.
Which I'm mainly using that for organ.
Okay.
Because it's got the physical drawbars.
Yeah, the drawbars,
Which the Stage 4 has the drawbars too. But honestly, just being able to reach over to another board that's like dedicated is really helpful.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes I'll also use it for any synth sounds that are more of a modern approach, that's like your super saw type stuff, or like your very digital sounding stuff. Or sometimes if there's stuff that like is very specific to the record or to an arrangement that I've worked on, I'll sample it and put it in there. And most of those samples are in the compact.
Awesome.
And that just helps me, like, I know you've had guests on here before, and you guys have talked a lot about the benefits of having a laptop-based rig and the flexibility it brings you. And I agree with all of that. But I feel like the way you can sample stuff into some keyboards, if you can take the time to prep, which if you're going on tour, you should 100% do, it's kind of the best of both worlds, because it can still sound exactly how you want it to sound. And I just feel like the margin for error, the capacity for things to go wrong is a lot less.
Yes, yeah. Especially because we're not just talking about 100 people in the room, small church anymore. You're talking about thousands in a larger
that people
context.
have paid money to come see.
Yeah,
and
want to have that.
And it's not just for the sake of the guests that have paid money to come see it, but it's also, like I mentioned with the rehearsals, like you're contributing to someone else's vision, and you're also representing yourself as well. Yeah. In addition to representing Christ and all the things that we talk about, it's also a business, and there's money on the line, and that's the thing. Like, everything that comes along with that is really like what we talk about when you talk about a professional musician being different than a church musician, and just navigating that. And so for me, one way that manifests in terms of just the gear that I choose is I'm not just going to go based off of features or based off of convenience. I'm going to go based off of what is the most solid, what is the most flexible.
That's good.
Which, like, take Mainstage or Ableton. I'm a big Ableton guy, by the way.
Awesome.
And I've done tons of times where I'm all in the box. I've done that a lot too. But while that might be more flexible than maybe some older keyboards, you can get exactly the piano sound you want. I feel like Nord is one of the few brands you have some of that immediacy and flexibility if you know how to work the board. So I think that, like, whatever you're using, if it's all hardware, if it's Mainstage, if it's Ableton, if it's a Kronos or what's the Yamaha one?
Yamaha Motif or Montage.
Montage, yeah. Or Phantom or whatever. Just take the time, do yourself and everyone that you're sharing the stage with a favor, and just learn it. For me, I'm not all hardware. On tour, I'm all hardware. If during sound check, one of my keyboards craps out, I'll find a MIDI controller. I'll go to Guitar Center and buy something if I have to and set it up. I have an Ableton session that is like it's like a complete recreation of my keys rig in Ableton.
I love that. As a backup?
As a backup.
And
so it's a lot of maintenance, because as I change things, I have to like either recreate it or sample it or whatever. But I'm slightly OCD, and it just gives me that confidence.
That's great.
I had a mentor tell me one time to always give yourself the home court advantage.
Yeah. And
for me, that's the keyboards that I know. I feel like I pretty much know every feature of all those boards that are with me on stage.
That's good.
And so whereas if I was in Mainstage or something, is this working? Is this glitching out because I have a bad USB cable? Is it glitching out because I've got an old Focusrite Scarlett that kind of jangles whenever I put it up to my ear? Is it crapping out because I'm connected to Wi-Fi?
Oh, man.
Or any number of things. And they're all simple things, but I'm not to dissuade anyone from doing it, because I do it. But I just feel like whenever my career is on the line.
Yeah.
Because, again, when you're on tour, it's another layer of that intensity.
Absolutely.
When my reputation is on the line, and moreover, the artists that I'm working for when their reputation is on the line. Especially if you're like a music director or doing playback or anything like that, you got to have your ducks in a row.
For sure.
I would rather just take a streamlined feature set and know it 100%.
Yes. And wherever the Lord is, the Lord is.
Yep.
So
it's the King of Keys and the Lord of Chords.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you're basically saying you have two Nords, a synth.
Yeah.
Whether that be the Korg or the Prophet 6.
Sometimes I'll get to backline like a Moog or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's usually...
Which, speaking of the Moog, we had Travis Dykes on the podcast. So if this is your first episode, you need to go check out the episode with Travis Dykes too, because we talk about... Yeah, isn't he amazing?
I've known him for a while now, but I last got to play with him this past summer in South Dakota at a festival. We were both subbing in for Danny Gokey.
Okay.
And it was such a nice surprise. I don't know if y'all would recall when all that stuff happened with like all the airlines, all the computers crashed.
Oh yeah.
So that I was flying out that day.
Oh man.
So I got caught up in all that. And so I ended up missing sound check to this festival and everything. And I show up like an hour before the show.
Oh wow.
Don't have an ears mix. I don't even know what gear is on the stage. And again, home court advantage, I knew they were supposed to have a Nord for me, and they did. And so I was able to just boop, boop. But that's not the point. I'm sitting in the dressing room, and Travis walks in, and I was like, let's go, dude. I hadn't seen him in so long, but he's awesome. I love that dude.
Man. Wait. Tell the story again. You missed your flight because of some complications, technological.
Yeah, I ended up sleeping on the floor, MSP airport in Minneapolis.
Crazy.
And we made the show, missed sound check. Show up, and there's a rickety old Nord Stage 2 with a broken mod wheel.
Did y'all have a lot of rehearsals before this, or did you just...
No.
I want people to hear that.
I think I got the set list like 2 or 3 days before. And it's a 90-minute set.
How did you... tell people how you're able to prepare for this. Give some people some advice here.
Okay.
Some people are struggling just to do a 3-song set list on a Sunday.
I know.
Preparing
I know.
7 days.
I will say this about I want to say this really quick about worship music, though.
Say it.
Sometimes worship music is harder to learn than some of the most arranged pop stuff. Because
he said what he said, guys.
It's because it's so repetitive, and then these producers or these arrangers are like, hey, we're going to add this extra bar right here for no reason. And you have to remember that. Worship music can get so homogenous, which is what makes it so easy to flow, which is the point, right? Yeah. I find that if you're playing for an artist that has arrangements, there's like hits and stuff. For me, even though it might be technically more difficult, I actually find that easier to learn because I can just be singing it. I can listen to it in my car and I can sing along with it. Well,
it's written to be catchy.
Exactly. Like
pop.
It's hard to sing 6-4-1-5 at 85 BPM.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 songs and know like the minute differences between them. At least as a keys player, I feel like maybe guitarists or drummers feel differently because they have more parts. Yeah, keys players, there's definitely some right hand parts, but it's a lot of just pads, and so it's not that it's difficult. It's just that they all occupy the same space in my brain.
Yeah, it's hard to separate what's what. Yeah.
And but anyways, back to it with learning music for a show like that. I like to say that some of the most powerful processing units, computers on the entire face of the planet is this thing right here between your ears.
Come on, man.
And I think that people don't trust their brains enough.
Absolutely.
I think that what a lot of people lack in music is confidence. I don't mean being cocky. I just mean believing in yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I know, especially I know I'm going to have to practice. I'm going to have to open up my computer, turn my keyboard on, and play the music, play along with it, and figure out, what's that? I'm gonna have to figure that out. But I also know that.
By the way, are you given full chord charts for this stuff, or do
no.
you listen to it, right?
Just
you
listen
to it and play.
Sometimes I'll make my own chord chart. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's not as helpful. Just everyone's different.
Some of you are complaining because you don't get all the resources, and Marcus over here just listening down and playing.
Look, we're musicians.
We're musicians, man.
I want to be a musician. I'm not a typewriter. I'm not. And also, even with worship music, I think it's important to bring that creativity and your own approach to things. I don't believe that it was anyone's intention, getting back to the worship thing for a second, playing in church, multitracks.com, Loop Community, things like that are amazing resources.
For sure.
I don't know if product's the right word, but they allow churches to do music that people can really connect with, and it's impactful.
Yeah.
So I would never want to take anything away from that. But I think some churches, actually I think a lot of churches, it's easy for a lot of churches to just become a cover band.
Yeah.
Everyone's using the same multi-tracks these days. And I think the challenge for a creative team at a church is to deliver these songs in a way that is unique and spontaneous.
For sure.
And so, at least as a musician, as an instrumentalist specifically, like, that's how I feel. And maybe not everyone will agree with me. And that's
Speaking of spontaneous, we did an episode just on spontaneous worship, how to approach spontaneity within worship. So if you missed that, go back and view that episode.
Let's go.
Hour-long discussion from Jonathan with 10K Fam out of Colorado, but he did a session. And it was really good because some people have misconceptions about spontaneity in worship and why we should even have it. What is it? How can we prepare for it? How can we give ourselves the tools that we need so that when things happen in the service, how can we as musicians support that? That kind of thing. Y'all need to check that episode out.
And see, I grew up like that. Like when I was growing up playing in church, like there were no multi-tracks. There was no click. There was no nothing. It was like we were all listening. And even if we played the same arrangement 4 weeks in a row, which I'm sure we did that at some point, but it would still be a little different every time. And I just think that's how it's supposed to be.
I like it, man.
But anyways, getting back to preparing for a gig, I'm gonna spend the time practicing. I'm gonna spend some time creating patches if I'm able to. But I also know that if I just listen to it in my car on the way to the grocery store or at the gym, like that's doing something.
Really?
And I also find, here's a pro tip. Here, let me distill this into, if you can do this, then okay. If you're getting ready for a gig and you have a long set list and you can tell me the key of every song, the intro, and the outro, then I'm not saying that you're fully prepared for the gig, but that's like the most important thing. I feel like if you can get to that point where you can take the set list in a random order and you go, oh, this song, this is the intro, and this is the outro, and this is the key, then you've probably listened to it enough to where you're doing something right.
That's good.
Because I don't really think there's a lot of value in rehearsing something to where you played exactly the same way every single time. I think it's more important to understand the context of what you're supposed to be doing and what everyone else is supposed to be doing and where you fit into that.
That's good.
Because at the end of the day, we're musicians. We make music, and I don't think music is just regurgitating things. It's creation. It's synthesis.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much, man. Thank you for sharing that. So good. Okay, let's talk about your sound design. For one thing, so your setup, you use 2 stands. It's the ultimate stands with the double decker.
Yeah.
Looks like with like a V, the triangle. So you put your keyboard. I've never seen any other keys player do this. There probably is someone out there.
Yeah. I mentioned this before we started recording.
How do you not get this to fall off? Because those things can fall, and you see these things in like worship fails, Instagram accounts, and things falling off.
I don't know where it was or who it was, but we've probably both seen the video of the dude with, I think it's a motif.
Yeah. Oh, that
and
huge thing.
And he's like banging on it. Okay. If you look at that, if you go find that video, one thing to know about the Ultimate stands is that if you get I think they're all 2-tier, but
yeah, I think so.
The legs are different lengths. So I'm pretty sure that dude was using like probably one of the biggest keyboards money can buy on like the short legs. So I don't think anyone told that guy. But I will say that has happened to me before.
Okay, really?
When I was a kid.
Oh, no.
So these Ultimate stands have been around for a long time. But they look super futuristic, but I think they've been around since the 80s.
I like them. I think the first time I saw them was like a Newsboys tour or something.
So my church got one when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I just thought it was the coolest thing.
It is a cool thing.
The coolest thing. And ever since then, I've just always loved them. I know some people don't like them, but I think they're super cool.
I think they're super cool.
And they do have they can wall lift if everything's not tight.
Yeah.
But
I like how you can hide cables down the center of it.
Yeah.
Because the X stands, the cables, you have to zip tie them or tape them down.
I go through a lot of gaff tape with those X stands. Yeah. And also the weird thing about X stands, most X stands, is that it seems like they come out of the box crooked.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
Like especially the second tier, like you can never quite get it straight.
Yeah.
I actually was playing one time on a big tour with Jordan, and we were in an arena, and I was playing a double X stand. I'm not going to say what brand it was because I'm not here to hate. But the stand started disintegrating. We were on me, like literally. There's 15,000 people out there.
Oh my goodness.
And I've got a Nord Stage 3. I've only got two keyboards at this time. I got a Nord Stage 3 and a Prophet 6. So not a cheap rig, okay?
Yeah.
And these are my boards, okay? And I'm playing and I go reach for this lead line, and all of a sudden I just see this, just the whole keyboard does this, and I'm like, oh my God.
Oh no.
I look down and the teeth on one of the legs had completely come loose. And I literally spent the whole rest of the set, it was like a 20-minute set, doing like this, like playing, like literally playing one hand, just trying to save my boards.
No.
So, I don't know.
That's scary, man.
Yeah, X stands don't, some of them are trash too.
Yeah.
But as far as ultimate stands go, I did experience that one time where one collapsed on me, and I think it was just old and it just wasn't tightened. But that was when I was a kid, and since I've been using them professionally, I've not really had a lot of issues with them. They do get crooked.
They do
sometimes.
Yep.
But actually doing the 2 stands fixed that issue for me.
Okay.
Because what happens is when you have an X stand, you've got like the 2 points of contact, which kind of balances it. But when it's an ultimate stand, it's just in the middle, so it can teeter.
Yes.
Especially if you play hard. If you do the 2, then you actually have 4 points of contact, because it's the legs, the kind of like a triangle, and
Right.
it's touching the keyboard in 4 places. It's way more sturdy than any like single X stand I've ever used.
It's awesome.
You just have to make sure they're the same height. We were in rehearsals for our fall tour for Jordan, and I had this thought after rehearsal one day. I was like, I'm gonna try this, and I set it up. I was like, this looks dope.
Oh man.
And I set it up, and I was like, I feel like someone has to have done this before. I don't know if anyone's done it with ultimate stands or not. I'm sure people have done it with X stands. Maybe someone's done it with ultimate stands.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I did it, and I thought it was really cool, and it's actually very stable.
That's awesome.
And it accomplishes a few things for me. It doesn't just look cool. It's ergonomic in some ways. It was a little tricky because if you're used to playing multiple keyboards, you're used to this layout. And I've been playing piano like most of my life.
Yes.
But when you do it like this, you're either doing like this or like this, which this is fairly uncomfortable, or like this. But it's doable. And I just had to get used to that. It was so funny. The first day I did it, that entire day of rehearsal, anytime I would reach for a uni line or whatever, I would be like a whole step off, because I was just so used to like putting my hand in a certain place, but my wrist wasn't at the right angle.
Wow.
And that's really specific. But once you get used to that, and I actually
I can imagine that can be hard, because you're on this one plane, and then all of a sudden, changing your wrist like that, because you like think about an organ, right?
Yeah.
Organs, but that would be difficult.
But it forces you to move around.
Okay.
Which I think when you're on stage is important.
Yeah, you got to move around a little bit.
You got to move around. It helps stage presence. And the other thing about stage presence is that I've been trying 3 keyboards for a while. For a long time, I'd have a double stand and then a single stand over here.
Yeah.
And that's cool too. But that was an ergonomic failure for me, because I'm often playing. I try to play as much as I can in terms of, I try to not have as much in the tracks as possible. Mm-hmm. So I'm not like reaching over just to play one thing. I'm usually playing at least 2 parts at once.
Yes.
And so like I'm doing a lot of this. And so that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This makes it, everything's within reach if I can figure out how to orient my body.
Yes.
And the other thing is that if you have a double stand, I feel like you're creating a wall with the crowd. And this is a big one for me. Doing it the way I've been doing it, I have all my keyboards within reach, but in terms of what's right in front of me, it's just a single keyboard. I feel like I can interact with the crowd way better. People can actually see me, which I just think it's important. It's important that people see that I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And so, I just really love it for that. Also, any keys players that are used to using a double tier can relate to this. You have to adjust settings on your bottom board, so you got to do it like this.
Yeah, look, because it's blocking, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It eliminates that problem for me, because it's like I can see most of everything.
Especially the center, the very, very center. Yeah. That's where you need to make all the changes.
Yeah, and so that's where that comes from.
Are you sending 3 stereo feeds out?
So I send everything to a Radial Pro D8.
Okay, Radial Pro D8.
Yeah, shout out to Jim at Radial.
Nice. High quality, man.
Yeah, it's just like, these are fairly nice keyboards. I feel like you should keep the signal flow nice to the very end. That way, if it sounds bad, it's probably someone else's fault.
I love it.
You know? But currently, I'm doing 6 stereo lines. I'd like to do 8, because I do main keys and background pads from the bottom one. I'd like to be able to split that out.
Yeah.
But 8 lines is a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
But right now, I'm layering those together. And the Stage 4, with its dedicated effects, lets me really get the mix right on the pads. So I'm sending those out as a stereo pair, and then I'm sending the analog synth out, another stereo pair, and the organ / aux keys / whatever else, orc hits, bells, all that thing out the last set.
How much are you guys doing tracks with Jordan, to be honest? And how much is not tracks at all? Are you just doing a click and cues? Or
Oh, no, there's definitely tracks for sure. It's a 4-piece band, and I love a big sound. I will say there's pretty much all the guitars are live. There's not a lot of... The only time we would have guitars in there is if there's... We only have one guitar player, so if it's something that another part that he can't play, and he's playing his main thing live or whatever. Or sometimes like I'll pick up a guitar and just add like something to the like power chords or whatever, something easy. Yeah. Or as far as like bass goes, like no, there might be some like sub bass in there just to feed the subs a little bit. Like our bass player is awesome. He always has I think he brings a couple basses out. He's got a Moog as well.
Awesome. Man.
We really spend some time in rehearsal to get all the tones right. As far as keys go, like I said, I try to play as much as I can. There's some things that I might like double in the tracks, like with a different kind of patch.
Yeah.
Just because if we only did tours, I probably wouldn't need to do that. But because I also want our show to be flexible for like festivals, fly dates, stuff like that, I have a lot of stuff split out in the tracks. And depending on what I need for that moment, I might mute or unmute some stuff.
That's awesome.
I think it's important to... Again, because like it's a professional situation, it's a ticketed event. It's important that people know what to expect. Yeah. And so there's finding that balance between being a musician, being creative, being spontaneous, but also like delivering the product.
Yes.
And so that's Playback allows us to do that. We're running a redundant system as well, so that also helps if anything goes down. And another decision for me to do the mainly hardware thing is because I'm responsible for the playback. And so I've already got 2 laptops here. I don't really want a third one in addition to 3 keyboards and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And also just the immediacy of the hardware means that truthfully, I feel like in the tier of like priorities when I'm on stage, especially for Jordan, but in any capacity, like anyone who's doing playback, MD, and keys, it's like MD, playback, keys, or maybe even playback, MD, keys. I don't know. But I don't want to spend time I do want to spend time being a keys player because that's what I love.
Yeah.
But it's like if that has to take more bandwidth than it needs to, then that's a problem because those other 2 roles are really mission critical.
Yes, that's good, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. Playback's like the most important member of the band, and it's not even paid. But we're sending lighting and video and everything, so it's like that has to go. And
do you prepare that, or does someone else prep that? You do.
I don't do lighting.
Okay.
I drop some time code in and let the people that know about that do their thing.
That's good.
No, but I do prepare the playback and I do the live arrangements and stuff like that.
All Ableton, of course.
All Ableton. Live. I've got Logic and Pro Tools if you're like holding a loved one hostage, forcing me to use it. But I've really been an Ableton guy for a long time.
That's awesome, man.
Long time. And we were talking about the rig. Like I would say my touring rig is what we're describing right now.
Yes.
But during the summer, I have a different rig.
Okay.
I mainly do 2 keyboards unless I can backline a third one.
Okay.
Which again,
because it's so hot outside, or
it's just that we do a lot of fly dates.
Okay.
And I don't want to fly with three keyboards. And I also again I want to give myself the home court advantage. So for me, that means I've been doing this long enough. I could figure out my way through some synth that I've never used before, where you could put a Roland Phantom in front of me or something. And I think those are great sounding boards, but I could probably figure it out eventually. But I definitely don't want anyone waiting on me. I'll say for festivals, like, hey, just get me a Nord, preferably a stage 3 or stage 4.
Yeah.
And I can dump my patches on those. But if it's a stage 2, I will either make the patches on the fly or I'll use it as a MIDI controller. Like I said, I have that backup rig. And then for all my synth sounds, I've got in our playback, we have the Play Audio 1U, which is a dope piece of equipment.
We've talked about that with Seth Penn on Seth Builds Rigs.
We just got it like a few months ago. Before that, we were rocking the Play Audio 12 for years, which that's another great piece of gear.
Yes.
But what I actually do, which this is going to scare some people, but
oh, man.
Again, if you do the prep work and you do all the stress testing and you do your due diligence, there's nothing to fear. What's the saying? I feel like Matthew McConaughey said it, but I'm sure that he didn't.
All right.
It feels like a Matthew McConaughey quote to say a failure to plan is a plan to fail.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. He's probably said it, but it probably wasn't him originally.
But I just hear it. I definitely hear it in all right after that, for sure.
Yeah.
But what I do for summer festivals is I have all my synth sounds either sampled from the analog synth that they're coming from.
Cool.
Or recreated in a plugin that I'm happy to share with you. And I run those from the playback session.
That's awesome.
And so I will fly with a MIDI controller, like an Arturia Key Lab, and I'll trigger the tracks from those, like with the drum pads.
Yeah.
And then I've got like an instrument rack in Ableton. I don't know if you're an Ableton guy.
Yeah.
But
no, not a big Ableton guy, but we've done some episodes.
I'm sure
about
someone
Ableton,
on this, someone who's listening is a big Ableton
For
person.
sure, absolutely.
And
we love Ableton.
But I've got all my sounds in a rack in Ableton,
Yes.
and they're automating like the plugins being turned on and off, so they're never using a ton of CPU.
Absolutely.
And then I'm playing that as well, and I've just got a dedicated set of outputs on the Play Audio for that. And so that's my aux keys.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the benefit of that actually is that I have all my sounds, and it's also redundant because it's on both laptops.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and then I'll try to backline a B3 if I can.
I love that, man.
Which, depending on the festival, that sometimes that's doable, sometimes it's not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've got all the tracks split out, so I can just unmute the B3 tracks.
That's awesome.
So it's all about having that flexibility.
That's great, man.
But
you can definitely check if you're curious about Ableton. We do have an Ableton Live specific episode.
Nice.
With Zane Steffens. You might have to go back a lot, but there is a Ableton Live if you want to actually see inside someone's session and see all the nitty gritty of Ableton. We do have an overview of that.
I might have to go watch that.
Yeah, definitely do it. Zane's awesome.
Yeah.
He's in Atlanta, but great keys player. But anyway, Ableton Live. We love Ableton Live.
Here's another tidbit that maybe someone will find valuable. There's a plugin out there from one of my favorite companies the company's called Uhe. It's U-HE.
Okay.
And they make like this plugin called Zebra, which they developed with Hans Zimmer.
Oh.
So it's super cool.
Yeah.
They make another plugin called Diva.
Okay.
Diva is if you took all the Arturia collection and put it in one plugin.
Oh, wow.
So it's basically you create your own custom synth. You can take like a oscillator. You can, with the oscillator section, you can say, oh, I want a Moog oscillator, I want a Jupiter oscillator, Juno oscillator, run it into a MS-20 filter with a Moog envelope, and you can tweak it.
Awesome.
That one's really CPU hungry. That's why they call it Diva. But the one I wanted to talk about that I actually use very often is called Hive.
Okay.
And this is not a paid sponsorship. I've just been using Uhe for so long, and I just feel the need to preach the good news.
But y'all should sponsor Marcus here, Marcus Wiles, if you're listening to this.
Hey, I can make you some content. It would be so easy because I literally use this stuff every day. But Hive is designed to be, it's from the ground up designed to be CPU efficient.
Oh, awesome.
And it is amazing for live stuff. You can just layer sounds to your heart's content. And especially if you have the M1, like the Apple Silicon, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like very minimal hit on your CPU.
Amazing.
And so for live, obviously that's helpful. But when I go out on these festivals, I've got, again, if you're familiar with Ableton, you can have these instrument racks. You can have these different chains in your instrument rack, all your different sounds, and you can automate which one's being triggered.
Yeah.
And I've got a combination of samplers, like the Ableton sampler of sounds that might have created in either in a plugin for an arrangement that I'll sample in, or from my Nord, or from one of my synths.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that just has to be, it doesn't translate well as a sample because some things don't, I'll create it in Hive. And
awesome.
I've been doing that for 3 years.
Wow.
I've never had a single crash.
It's amazing.
And so you should check out Hive.
We'll definitely link that in the description here.
If you're looking for a CPU light synth, and it sounds great too.
It's amazing. If you want to hear Marcus actually demonstrate this one day, let us know in the comments because, man, we'd love to have you back to actually get down to the nitty-gritty of synth and software. In fact, in September, we're planning on doing an all like synthesizer and software specific episodes.
Wow.
So maybe in between when you're on the road, we'd love to have you back to like actually demonstrate some of these.
It'd be a pleasure.
And I would love, especially if you get your Prophet 6 out, get some analog stuff, get the Moog, get some software, man.
I'd be honored. It'd be so much fun.
We're trying to wrap the episode up. I know we could probably talk all day because you're incredible. You have so much knowledge and just so many things we could dive even deeper into. But what's one piece of advice, or maybe a few things you could say to a keys player who's learning maybe right now, whether they are however old, does not matter, but someone, if you could speak to your younger self when you were learning keys. And I know you mentioned earlier that jazz was a big influence, gospel was a big influence, and like expanding your listening is always a huge piece of advice. What's your best piece of advice to them?
My best piece of advice is listen to everything. And also find a way, even if you find something you don't like, try to understand why you don't like it. Don't just be like, I don't like this. Because at the end of the day, the only way to be a successful musician is to be able to respect all music.
That's good.
You have to respect all music and the journey of the people that made them.
That's good.
And like, if you want to be intentional about the stuff you make, you have to understand that the stuff, like other people have been intentional about the stuff they've made too.
Yeah.
And so if you can find something to appreciate or respect about everything that you listen to, then you'll find value in it, and that's how you learn. That's how you gain something. It's like, if you just say, I hate this, then, and I made this mistake when I was younger, you know, then you're just losing an opportunity to gain an influence.
Yeah.
And then a little bit contradictory to that.
Okay.
But this is more to do with like just professional advice. I think as you're developing as a musician, listen to everything, expose yourself to as much as possible.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being a professional, I think it's really important to find your thing, to find your niche. One would assume that to say, in an ideal world, say I'm good at everything would be the most valuable thing, but that's really not true. Like, when people need a job done, they find the person that is best at that.
That's good, yeah.
And so I have, for instance, a lot of influences with jazz and gospel, and I can dabble at a lot of things, but to certain people or in certain communities, I'm known as the synth guy, or I'm known as the playback guy, or I'm known in the church world, like I'm known as that guy that knows a lot of those old songs but still has like kind of modern tones.
Yeah.
And it's changing as I develop my own journey. Like, my niche is changing, but I think that if you want to take the leap into seeing what it is to be a professional musician, like, figure out what your thing is that you can market yourself as.
That's good.
I'm trying to say that at a certain level, it's good to be a jack of all trades, but once you get to a certain threshold and you want to work for a certain type of client,
yes,
they're looking for specialists.
That's good.
And so they're looking for the right person for the job.
That's good, man.
And so you have to know what your thing is.
For sure.
I'm sure a lot of people listening will be in a conversation about, oh, you're a musician? What kind of music do you do? For me, that's a hard question, you know? Yeah. But it's important to be able to answer questions like that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. A few things during this podcast, which we preach this all the time, but just ear training is so vital. If you guys can just pull up some songs, just try to match it, learn the natural number system, learn your circle of fifths, learn your scales, just all those things. And of course, you guys can download the ebook of Playing Worship Keys by Ear. So it's a 50-page ebook, outlines what you need to do if you really want to start playing by ear. Maybe you know how to play, but you're like, how do people listen down to a 90-minute set, a Danny Gokey set, and be able to play that on a tour where you didn't even get to sound check?
I know.
It comes from being able to play by ear, listening, and it comes from years and years, of course, of practice. Like, you can't skip the fundamentals. Yeah. And then once you get the fundamentals, apply that to ear training. You have to. Oral skills are just important. So I'll conclude this episode by saying, check out the ebook, get some training on the Nashville number system. If you don't know what that is, of course, we have other episodes on that as well. Music theory tips with Kurt Buell and all kind of things. But thank you for sharing on the podcast. So grateful that you took the time out of your day to come. Of
course, man. It's been fun.
And y'all follow him, Marcus Wiles, on Instagram. Super cool. But man, let's hear you play, bro. Let's hear you play some piano.
Alrighty.